This stage design that you see behind me was definitely the most challenging stage designs that we've tried to build today. Also the most rewarding. It's beautiful. And I want to show you exactly how we made every single part. The centerpiece, which I call the sun, the mountain windows, and the valley windows on the side. I'm going to show you right after this.
Pastor Chad, how'd y'all bend this wood?
Very carefully, Brian. Very carefully.
I asked the same thing, but he never answered.
This mountain window was, like I said in the intro, difficult to make, but it was also a lot of fun because it was way different from any of our other stage designs that we've ever made here. And the idea came from a window, like an actual window in a restaurant that I saw on Pinterest, and it had the slats in front of it, similar to this piece over here. Had these slats in front of it. It had 2 layers of mountains, kind of similar to what we made as well, and it had some foliage and things like that. And I was like, that's really cool. I wonder if I can make that into a standalone structure, that like a piece that we can hang on our stage. It's a 4x8 piece of plywood is the backing. It's an 1/8 inch 4x8 plywood. Each layer is an 1/8 inch 4x8 plywood, made from a 4x8. And the frame is a 2x4 frame. And the very top piece, so that's an arch. So we had to attach an arch, a 2x4 arch, to the top of a U-shaped 2x4 frame. I mean, just made like you would if you're, putting together blocks with a 2-year-old. It's just a 2x4 sitting here and a 2x4 on the bottom, all attached together. Now the hard part was making this arch. The way we started, I wanted to start with the backing and the frame first, so that way we can then build up our layers and put in our LED strips. So I took an 1/8 inch piece of 4x8 plywood and I cut the top off in that circular shape. So I used a little piece of rope and a pencil and make sure I measured it out perfectly, and then whoop, drew that, cut that piece out. Perfect. That's the exact shape I wanted. Then I took that piece and I laid it on top of another full sheet of 4x8 plywood and drew that on top of the next piece. And then I brought it down by 2 inches. And then we drew that. So the backing became a template for the 2x4 arch shape on the top. So the frame is a 2x4 frame. So it's just the U-shaped frame. And then the top piece is also a 2x4, but we had to assemble it. We had to piece it together to make it that perfect arch shape. And let me tell you how I did that. Once I had my 1/8 inch thick, 2 inch piece that we cut out from the plywood, I cut that in half. So now I have a quarter circle, if you will, or a half arch. And I laid that on top of a 2x12 piece of wood. The great part about this is the half arch, or the quarter circle, fits perfectly on a 2x12 piece of wood with that wood laying down flat. Then you can use that as a template, draw your quarter arch on the 2x12 piece of wood, and then cut that out. It may not be perfect. Your cuts might be a little jagged, but you can sand that out later. So this one piece, this one fixture, if you will, has 4 2x12 cutouts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and also 4 of those 1/8 inch templates. So what we did was we took a 2x12 and another 2x12 arch. Now it's really just a 2x2 arch, half arch, and we sandwiched the templates together. I'm showing you right now. We sandwiched the templates together so that way the full thickness was the exact thickness of a regular everyday 2x4. So it's almost 4 inches in height once you stack all that together. I know it sounds confusing, but it was the best way to get it to look like a solid 2x4 frame going all the way around, and to the point where I had people asking me, did you have to bend a 2x4 to get it to look like that? I said no, and I told them that whole story of how we did it. So we took some wood glue and we glued all of that together and held it together with clamps overnight. Then we put the 2 arch halves on top of the frame, so now it looks like this, as you can see. We put those on top. We attached it here and we attached it here to the top of the frame. Then I took a little bitty piece of wood, a little bitty piece of plywood, and I cut like this little bitty half circle out and put it at the very top so that way you wouldn't be able to see the seam where it comes together. It's pretty much that complicated. It's pretty much that simple, but it is kind of complicated. Again, just to make it simpler, if you take a piece of plywood and you draw an arch, cut that in half, lay it on top of a 2x12, use that as a template, cut it out, and now you have 2 half arches where you can put that together and make a full arch. We did stain this whole piece differently. We have a darker stain on this lower mountain. We have a kind of a lighter stain here, and then another darker stain for the highest peak. And then the very back is, the backing is a light stain as well. So I wanted some separation in the color of that. Now for the layers themselves, this is where it gets fun, way easier to understand. Each mountain layer is its own separate layer, like I said, and we hand drew those onto plywood. We cut that out, we laid it in, and each are separated. So for example, from the backing to this tallest mountain is separated by a 1x2. So the thinnest side of the 1x2 laid down flat. And you can see in some of this B-roll how we used the 1x2 all through the bottom to give it that separation evenly across the whole thing. And then we took the 1x2 and laid it out in pieces. All these were like just random pieces of 1x2 we had laying around, and we shaped that similar to the mountain shape, so that way we can then lay our LED tape over that rough mountain shape. In this part of the video, we'll be like, look, don't worry about what this inside looks like. Just sandwich it. And then attach the mountain to the top with some nails, so that way it looks like that light is evenly spread over the shape of the mountain. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close. Here's truly the designer, mastermind behind this mess. Didn't think this through as far as how these are going to be attached from the back. So this first layer that's attached to the backing has to be attached from the back side. So hopefully I'm hitting the 1x2 on the bottom. This piece over here, the one with the vertical slats, that's just 1x2 with LED tape on the back of them. Lifted just a little bit, enough to shine onto the back. The same exact backing that we used here, we just didn't do a frame on that. Also, this bottom mountain, we used the cutout as the valley for this side panel over here. So that side panel is much lighter. It's completely different. We had foliage growing up from it. On this window, we had foliage kind of growing around the top. Of course, we use these LED strip tape that I always use for all of my design. It's incredibly versatile. The colors are beautiful. I use black, the black backing instead of the white backing, but that's what we use for all the lighting. And then all the wiring is going inside, going down the inside of the box. Do not do that. Once you run your LED tape around the inside on top of those 1x2s, go ahead and drill a hole straight through and run your wire out the back. If you need to know how to wire the LED tape and what decoder and what power supply to use, I have a video right here that will tell you all about how to do that, and I also have it in the description below, so you can check that out, see how we wire, see how we run the LED tape to our DMX software. That's pretty much it for this. Like I said, it's one of the most difficult designs we've ever done. It's a full, complete structure, and we were able to rig that as one piece, as one fixture, if you will. And we have our cabling running down to the decoder, to the power supply. And I also stained the outer frame as well. And then also, last thing with the box is you want to make sure it's rigged properly if you are going to fly this and hang it somewhere on your stage. I had a professional rigger come in and check my work and make sure that not only what we hung it with, but also the way we hung it was done properly. So that way, the last thing I want is this thing to fall and kill my pianist. You ready? You guys ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. You ready? All right. How far above do you think y'all go? Hold it tight. I'm almost there.
Wait, can you hold it?
Yeah.
So make sure when you rig yours, when you hang that, it's done properly and not just jerry rigged and might fall. You know, when Carlos hits a B on the 5 string. All right, it's very important. Use the right stuff. Anyway, let's talk about the sun. The sunset or sunrise was not an obvious choice at first. When I started concepting the design out on the software, it's just something came to mind as far as like, what is our centerpiece going to be? Is it going to be an extension of what these other ones are? Or is it going to be its own thing? And I just laid out like the LED strips in that sunburst pattern. I've seen it before. This idea is not brand new. We've seen it all over the place. So I just laid it out and I said, you know what? That's gorgeous. It really pulls it all together. Using an odd number of LED strips really just pulls your eye into the center. Anytime you use multiple of anything, it's much better to use an odd number instead of an even number. Kind of like we have 5 main structures. On our outside windows, there are 5 slats because you want that center piece of even in each structure itself. There are 3 sets of mountains instead of 2 or 4. There are 13 LED strips in this. The difference in the sizes is just by 1 foot. So some are 6, some are 5. And I made a wooden frame out of a 1x2. Just made a large wooden frame, and then we put the slats, the 1x2s, we arranged them as evenly as we possibly could. That was much harder than I thought it was gonna be. I thought, oh, this would be easy, just make them even, just measure. I cut this thing here to show me the arc of the side. See, that's why I can't even talk. The arc here,
I'll explain it.
and so we'll have a piece of black there, and then we're about to, so we did the frame, and that's an 8x4 frame.
That will be painted black.
And then we have another piece of wood that's about to come right there, and all this will be painted black, and we'll have LED strips on all the black ones. So we have it on some because these were leftover, and this will be the middle piece. But when you have like this axes here, it just made it complicated. So I was like, okay, how are we gonna make this a little bit easier? So then I made a smaller wooden frame for the bottom, so that way we could attach it at the bottom and somewhere in the middle. You can't really see that wooden frame right now because I used a black paint that's called Musso black paint. I painted those frames with this paint and it just completely disappears. Wow, you can already tell the difference. So all I have on is the stage lighting, and I can see it really clearly. The right side is not painted. The left side just looks like it's not there at all. Now I just have the studio light on. Check this out. This is what it looks like with the studio light. Actually, that's a little more what it looks like in person. Bump that ISO up. I mean, and it's still, I mean, I gotta paint the chain now. This is incredible. If I could go back and redo the sun, which I'm not going to, but if I could, I would not paint the wood sun rays black. I would leave those a wood color and stain those and just paint the frame that we used to hold that structure together black with that Musso black paint. The LED strips that we're using are, again, those black LED strip tape. We just laid those out on the 1x2 as straight as we possibly could. I actually use a laser to make sure they stay straight. I glue them with a simple clear Gorilla type of glue, so that way, even though they are sticky, they will not come apart mid year when we have this up. And all of our wiring is in the center, and it's being hidden by that half circle, like I said, and it's coming down to our decoder. We actually had to use 2 decoders so with this one, because there's 13 LED strips and our decoder only holds 8, so we had to use 2. And that's pretty much it. And every LED strip is addressed separately, so that way we can do all kind of different designs in all different shapes, and not even use all the LED strips in some of our lighting shows. I know I'm going to get questions about what software we use. We use Lightkey, and what's so great about Lightkey is you can build out your design and make it look exactly like your stage. And not only that, you can build out this before you make your design, so you know, based on the sizing of your stage and the whole shape and layout, you know exactly what sizes you need if you do it to scale. Another thing is, I love that you can visualize exactly what you're doing and know which LED strips you're gonna start manipulating. So you can see here, I grabbed that middle LED strip on the left side. There's just all kinds of things you can do. Lightkey does work with your fixtures. If you have moving fixtures, it knows the profiles of the moving fixtures and knows what you're wanting to achieve, and it gives you all the parameters of that moving fixture, just as you would see on any other software or board. But yeah, love Lightkey, and I love that we can make it look just like our actual stage. Also, another thing is your shows can just be laid out cue by cue and just go through it as the song progresses. Or you can set this up to work with ProPresenter and cue each one of these cues with just the press of the button on ProPresenter without actually having to have a lighting operator. So it does all that you would ever want it to do. So yeah, that's Lightkey in a nutshell. I hope that something I said or something I showed you today was inspiring for you to go and create something amazing at your church for your stage. You can make this exact thing, but fit it to your stage. Again, I will list all the materials that we used, as well as the items that we use, like the LED strips and other stuff like that. Otherwise, this whole stage, this design was made out of wood. So just go to your local hardware store, make a list first, go to the store, buy all the wood that you need, and then LED strips, decoders, power supplies. I mean, that's pretty much it. But look in the description below. If I'm able to make like an actual materials list, I'll put that in the description to where you can download that, as well as all the links to everything that I use. And not only that, there are lots of other stage design videos that we've made, and then also how to actually wire and address those LED strips to your DMX lighting software. So go check that video out. I know that one's going to be pretty important to a lot of you that haven't used the LED strips yet. But yeah, this design is all said and done, and we're already starting to work on next year's, and I can't wait to show you that eventually on the channel. So thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, great worship leaders are always learning. I'll see you next time. Go create something great, and then show me on Instagram at Worship Leader Hangout.